Morning folks, competitive Splatoon 2 player and bubble tea enthusiast Mellana here again to officially introduce this new series on my YouTube channel called Looking for Game, or LFG for short. And last week we talked about how you can join the competitive community by doing a number of things, like finding folks to play with in streamer private lobbies, or using resources such as the Splatoon Stronghold or Checkpoint 1 to find information about the competitive scene. But if you didn't get a chance to catch my video on how to join the competitive community in Splatoon, be sure to check it at the link in the description below. But what if maybe you're still part of the group that's not so sure if becoming a competitive Splatoon player is right for you because of some of the things you've heard in passing? Well, I'm here today to dispel some of the myths of competitive Splatoon that might have made you hesitate to jump right in. So let's get to it. One of the most common things that I've heard is that you have to be an X rank to be a competitive player. It's true that when you're an X rank player, you normally have more experience with the mechanics of the game, and you've probably put more time into the game than folks in other ranks, but that shouldn't be the baseline to being a competitive player. In my opinion, competitiveness isn't a rank standard, but instead it's a mindset that challenges a player to want to improve and continue to grow overall. And that could be through mechanics, communication with your teammates, understanding the flow of the game, or, any number of things. There are plenty of folks who are S or S plus rank players who join a team earlier in their competitive career, and that's totally valid. In truth, those players probably improve faster as individual players as well, and they probably have an easier time making it up to X rank because as they're on a team, they're learning about the flow of the game more productively than maybe in a solo queue match. So don't be worried if you're not an X rank yet, but you're still interested in competitive play. There can be a niche for you in the scene, especially if you find folks who are at a similar level mechanically as you, and who also have a growth mindset to become better players too. The second myth is that you have to be a great solo queue player in order to be a good team player. I think that this is mostly untrue. Folks who are good at solo queue don't necessarily have the foundational team skills to be a good team player. In all honesty, I actually think it's easier to translate the skills from being a team player to being a solo queue player. Team play requires being able to communicate effectively with your teams, whether that's through voice chat like Discord, using the booyah, ouch, this way commands appropriately in a way that your teammates will understand, or even just understanding how your teammates play and using that to determine the flow of the game through practice. I'd say it's almost necessary to use voice chat to communicate properly with your teammates, but I have seen some top players opt not to use voice chat at all, and I think that's such an amazing thing, so I know it's possible, but obviously a very unique case. By being able to communicate effectively, this can lead to much more coordinated pushes and specials than what you might see in solo queue at pretty much any rank. So don't let your solo queue rank deter you from trying out team play. The third myth I want to talk about is playing with a team is only about playing in tournaments. While yes, playing in tournaments is a big part of playing with a team, as I mentioned in my last video, scrims are also a big part of team play. Being able to practice for a tournament before you enter and pinpointing areas of improvement for your team is hugely important for becoming a better team player. A VOD review is something that teams usually do to help this process. Basically, someone records their perspective, or ideally an overhead spectator cam perspective of a scrim or a tournament, and by watching it back, team players can get together and discuss what was done well and what might need to be done better for next time. And in this way, you can improve together with your team through communication both on and off the battlefield, producing more effective results when tournament time comes again. And finally, you can only be competitive if you play X, Y, or Z weapon. While a lot of weapons are more easily viable in Splatoon's competitive scene, especially now, that shouldn't limit the possibilities that other weapons have to offer. But that's not to say that there's a place for certain weapons on every comp, because then you turn out having comps like what you might see in solo queue. It honestly takes a lot of trial and error to figure out strategies for team comps that work, especially with weapons that aren't exactly in the forefront of the competitive scene, but even now, breakthroughs have been made from using uncommon weapons in a unique way. Two teams that I've looked up to as prime examples of trying new things are Azure, a team that has since been a little bit inactive, and Cherry Limeade, a team made up of many of the previous members of Azure. Now, both Azure and Cherry Limeade perform at the very top levels of Western competitive play, and what makes these teams really unique is that they've always tried to think of ways to counter the most popular and sometimes the most frustrating aspects of the competitive climate. One of the most memorable team comps that I remember Azure coming up with was the double Kenza Luna Blaster comp, because they realized how much of a nuisance the fizzy bombs could be and used them to their advantage to create covering fire for their shooters. And that's just one of many ingenious ideas that these teams have come up with in order to push themselves to the top. If you'd like to learn more about Cherry Limeade, you should definitely check out Krim and Pika's YouTube channels. And if you'd like to learn more about how to fill in team roles with a weapon that you would love to see more in competitive play, be sure to check out Pika's coaching services on Metafy as well. All links are in the description below. So while picking a Kenza Splattershot, a Kenza 52 Gal, or an NZAP 85 might be safe when it comes to picking weapons that are widely viable in the competitive scene, who knows? Your team might come up with a new tech that'll utilize even the most uncommon weapons. If y'all can think of any other myths that I missed in this video, definitely drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about these myths and if you've ever heard any before, but hopefully this video will help some of you dip your competitive toes into the scene. Figuratively, of course. I'm looking forward to continuing to make this series to help you all get accustomed to competitive play, so I hope that you're excited for what's to come. If you enjoyed this video and felt like you related at least a little bit to it, be sure to drop a like, a sub to the channel, and make sure that bell button is on so that you know when my next video will drop. Thank you again for your patience as I finish up my school year as a teacher, and I promise videos will be more regular in the coming weeks. And with that being said, until next time, stay fresh!